Thank you, Admiral. Good morning. These guys. You know, it was a real privilege volunteering along with Riley, as Matt pointed out, Riley's leadership to help bring Midway here. But it struck me the other day that it took us 12 years to get all the permits from 92 to 2004 to get Midway here. And when you think about that for just a moment, that's 3 times as long as it took America to fight and win World War II. I'm not sure that leadership was so good when we're thinking back, but that's California's regulatory environment. We're not going to get into that today. It's remarkable that so many people stuck it out to a point where we are now going to celebrate next month our 15th anniversary. It's remarkable. Some housekeeping items for us. Number one, again, to correct an earlier announcement, the restrooms are just on the other side of the Coke machine, as well as down at the other end of the flight deck. We've got a great library crew. They've got a wide variety of all 3 ship's cruise books down there on display. They'd be more than happy to share some information they have, or maybe research some questions you may have. Please take advantage of that. For those of you who might be interested in a membership, particularly our 2 sisters to Midway, we've got a membership table over there at the entrance. Many of you who are members know, and I'm sure share our deep respect for someone who is a real fireball aboard Midway, who wears her heart on her sleeve, who just came back from an honor flight to Washington, D.C. as a volunteer guardian. Please acknowledge our membership director, Jill Hammonds. No, I don't want to cast aspersions on the IQ of this group, but the docents came up and asked me to demonstrate how to use these stickers I served on the table. You don't lick them. We're cracking peels, okay? So if you need some help, come see us afterwards, or maybe somebody at the table has figured it out, but you don't need to ask the docents where the glue is for these stickers. Speaking of the docents, as many of you know, we've arranged, both our safety team and particularly the docents have done a great job for weeks organizing tours for you. And they will take you to just as many places and special places as they can based on what's illuminated, what's safe, and so on. There are tours today at 10, 11, and 1, led by our docents. The 10 o'clock is basically full, but after our activities here this morning at 10 o'clock or whatever, there is going to be a docent station over here on your left at the information center, where they still have plenty of slots for the 11 o'clock and 1 o'clock tours. So I would strongly encourage you take advantage of that. They do just a marvelous job in accommodating your personal wishes, especially in this group, as much as anyone. We also are shooting some video right now, some commercials on Midway's new advertising campaign. They're up on the flight deck. It's been a 2-day video shoot. And one of their photographers, young man named Daniel, who I don't see down here yet, will probably be wandering around a little bit, looking for some of you guys whose faces are appropriate for photography. Just saying. No expression, I have a face made for radio. And he may ask you to step aside, maybe in front of something and take a quick photo. He's legit, a nice young man, dark hair. So if you see him and he comes up and asks, please play along. It really helps us. Library, staff, Daniel, docents, housekeeping, bathrooms, check. A little bit of background, a little bit of an overview beyond what Matt said. When we did this a couple of years ago, everyone seemed to be interested in where we stand as a museum, how we are continuing to preserve your legacy, and most importantly from my standpoint, is to remind you that your service aboard Midway, your legacy, is what we get to market. I have the easiest marketing job in San Diego. I get to talk about you guys. And the reaction over 15 years, thanks to our docents and Mac's leadership and so on, is beyond anything that Riley and me and everyone else ever dreamed of back in the 1990s. Believe it or not, there are 35,000 museums of all types in the U.S. That's more than all the McDonald's and Starbucks combined. So maybe there is hope for us if we have that many museums. Your museum, your legacy that we simply talk about, is the 5th most popular museum of any type in the United States out of 35,000. Thank you for your service. Think about that for a minute. We just passed the Smithsonian Air and Space Museum. How long has that been around? So we are now number 5. It can be a little tough to get up to Museum of Art in New York City and so on, but it's a real testament again to the legacy that you all created that we get to talk about and promote to a certain extent. And it's amazing to realize, and I'm sure you guys won't know this, but it's in my world, believe it or not, only 16% of Americans go to museums every 2 years. It's not something people get up in the morning wanting to do. Another 16% say, yeah, I'm going to go to one in the next 2 years, but they don't. You know, another 30% say, well, I might if it's on sale. Give me a deal, coupon, you know, or something like that. And a good 40% of Americans never will go to a museum no matter what. Just not interested. It'd be like you advertising the San Diego Opera to me. It ain't happening. Just, sorry, Marjorie, I'm not going. You know, it's just one of those things, or whatever it might be. So it's just because we're here, just because we have the location, didn't guarantee success by any stretch of the imagination. And it's only because of, again, your legacy and the way our docents communicate that to people from all around the world is why we're so successful as we are. Your museum, in less than 15 years, has self-paid for all the improvements and millions of dollars every year in maintenance and so on, and we have $45 million in the bank. Wow. In 15 years. Yesterday I took about 3 minutes and real quickly looked at some of the most recent TripAdvisor reviews. There are nearly 24,000 that are on TripAdvisor. Here's a couple of examples. I took this tour because my father was stationed on the ship for 4 years. It was eye-opening to see the first-hand living conditions of a young sailor. They have on board an archive with which to look up records of those who were stationed on the ship. I found my father's yearbooks and photos. So awesome, I'll never forget the experience. The hangar deck, flight deck, and planes are the glamorous part, and are well done. But visiting the lower decks and seeing the conditions of the sailors and how they live, meaning you, was new to me and extremely enlightening. Thanks to all these volunteers and former sailors, I salute you with respect from Belgium, and your devotion to explain everything and be attentive to your visitors is worth every dollar. We get these every day, unsolicited, every single day. We were there for about 3.5 hours, and I wouldn't hesitate to go back. It really gives you an appreciation for what life was like on the ship and what the sailors, you, had to endure. Last one. I really had no interest in going to Midway, but sure I'm glad I did. It was extremely interesting. This floating city, living and working as the sailors did in that time, could not have been easy, but they had a job to do, as they unfortunately still do, and did it well. Take time to listen and ask questions of the large number of volunteers and Midway veterans they have aboard Midway. Again, that's your legacy. All we're doing is sharing your story, and by extension, all those who serve at sea, in the Navy, and certainly in the armed forces. And because of that kind of feedback, we are focusing more and more along those kinds of things as we go forward. And we're still building this business, for it is a business. One of the things that Riley, even though he was in the Navy, he understood from the very beginning that our great noble mission and vision to become America's living symbol of freedom and so on is just swell. But if we're not successful as a business, it doesn't matter. And we don't say that publicly, you know, to the rest of the world, but it was always about building a strong business plan, having the right people, the right kind of leadership, building the products, if you will, the services that people would want and be interested in, and doing it in the right way, which again is your legacy. And even though we've been here now 15 years, we still have a long ways to go. We're a 15-year-old. We're in puberty. We're a teenager. You know, the museums in Balboa Park are 80 years old, the Smithsonian, and so on. So we still have a long ways to go, such as virtual reality. And right now we're embarking on roughly $15 million of capital improvements, overhauling the flight aircraft elevators and so on, the back of the house, the infrastructure. Just, today's Wednesday?